Today, we're going to tackle a really tough question. When you see a big social problem and you want to help, how do you make sure your solution doesn't actually make things worse? It turns out it takes a lot more than just good intentions. And the framework we're exploring today is based on a lesson from the Flying Wings Online School. These are folks who are on the ground dealing with these exact kinds of complex challenges every single day. Okay, so let's start with a really high-stakes scenario. Imagine a place where girls are completely banned from going to school. They're cut off from their education. If you want to step in and help, what's your first move? What do you do? Well, for a lot of us, the answer seems pretty obvious, right? It's the 21st century. Let's use technology. We'll just start an online school so they can learn from home and get around the ban. Problem solved. Or is it? Because here's the twist. What if logging into that online class gets a student, or even her whole family, in serious trouble? What if the very act of learning puts a target on their back? Suddenly, that simple solution is anything but. And this really gets to the heart of it all. How do we actually help people without accidentally causing more harm? This is where we have to move beyond just meaning well and start thinking about acting responsibly. To do that, we can't just wing it. We need a better way to see the situation for what it really is. And the source material gives us a great framework for this. 3 powerful lenses that help us see the whole picture. All right, let's look at our first lens, and it's a big one: ethics. Now, ethics here isn't some abstract philosophical thing. It's really practical. It's about doing no harm and respecting people's dignity. And most importantly, it means we have to stop asking, can we do this, and start asking the much harder question, should we do this? Okay, now for the second lens, which builds right on top of ethics. Let's talk about power. You can think of power as this invisible current that runs through every single social issue. It's what determines who gets to make the big decisions, who controls the money and resources, and who ultimately shapes the outcome. And, just because you can't always see it doesn't mean it isn't incredibly influential. And that brings us to the third and final piece of this puzzle: context. A solution that's brilliant in one part of the world could be an absolute disaster in another. Context is everything: the local culture, the political situation, the history, the economics. If you ignore the local context, you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure, or worse, to cause real harm. So there we have it, our 3 lenses: ethics, power, and context. Now let's circle back to that online school idea and see what it looks like when we actually apply this framework. First up, let's look through that ethics lens. We're not just asking if education is a good thing anymore, we're digging deeper. We're asking, what are the hidden ethical landmines waiting for us in this specific situation? This forces us to ask some really tough questions. Is it ethical to offer an opportunity that could put someone in danger? And who gets to decide what level of risk is acceptable? Is it us? Is it them? Are the students and their families really giving informed consent if they don't understand the digital privacy risks? Suddenly, things like data security become a life or death issue. Next, let's switch to our power lens. Who's actually calling the shots here? Who has the influence and who doesn't? The answer might surprise you. So when you actually map it all out, a really stark picture starts to form. Way up top, you've got the authorities and the international donors. They hold all the power. They control access, legality, the money. Then in the middle, you have the NGOs and the families. But look at the bottom, the girls themselves. They are the ones most affected by every single decision, but they have the least amount of power in this entire system. And this just highlights a fundamental, often tragic pattern we see all the time. The people who are most affected by a problem are the ones who have the least say in how it gets solved. They become passengers in their own lives. Okay, finally, let's put on our context lens. What are the specific, unchangeable facts on the ground that our nice, simple online school idea is about to crash into? And wow, this list is a real reality check. We're not just dealing with a lack of school buildings. We're dealing with deeply conservative gender norms, constant security threats, a massive gap in who can even get online, widespread trauma from years of conflict, and crippling poverty. A simple app just can't wave a magic wand and make all of that disappear. So looking at all this complexity, it's easy to feel a little overwhelmed, right? So what can we actually do? Well, the source material gives us a really practical tool to help guide us. But first, before we even get to the tool, we have to accept one fundamental truth. Good intentions are just the starting point. They're not the finish line. They are absolutely not enough.
This checklist basically turns our three lenses into 6 direct questions you have to ask before you do anything. 1. Who really benefits from this? 2. Who could get hurt? 3. Who's making the decisions? 4. And this one's crucial, whose voices are we not hearing? 5. What happens down the road? And 6. Can we actually reduce or prevent the potential harm? This forces you to slow down and think.
Which leaves us with this final, really challenging question to think about. When the stakes are this high, when people's safety and lives are on the line, who should get the final say? The person with the money, the outside expert, or the person who actually has to live with the consequences of that decision every single day? It's something we all need to think about.